Louis grew up in an orphanage. He knew nothing about his parents. His mother was hospitalized without documents and ran away immediately after giving birth. The baby was somewhat stunted in growth, was sickly, and no foster parents were found for him. Despite a difficult childhood, the boy grew up intelligent and determined. He constantly told himself that he would become a successful man. The other children laughed at him, but years later, Louis really did succeed. Soon after leaving the orphanage, he began to work hard. He was a sharp boy and quickly realized that e-commerce was the future. His online store soon became a leader in the country, and Louis himself became a millionaire. The man was not arrogant and always tried to help the orphanage where he grew up. At parties, he used to bring lots of sweets and toys for the children. He invited entertainers for children's performances. He wanted to brighten the children's lives at least a little bit, but he knew perfectly well that the most important thing he could never give any of them was a family, for which he himself had desperately dreamed before. The years flew by quickly. Louis began to think that it would be a good idea for him to have a wife and children. However, he was too used to living alone and didn't know if he could change. Women did not stay in Louis's life for very long. The man felt that most of them only wanted money from him. But he dreamed of finding the right woman, whom he would love with all his heart, and who would surely love him back. That day Louis arrived at the orphanage with presents, as usual. The children were playing outside, many of them recognized the man and immediately began waving happily. Louis smiled warmly at the children. Suddenly, a boy of about 5 years old came out from the group of small children. He ran towards the man, threw his arms around his legs, and cried loudly. The educator tried to distract the child, but he was sobbing, calling Louis daddy and asking to take him home. Louis was confused. The children had never reacted so strongly to his presence, and the boy's words struck the man in the heart. That day he was going to discuss reforms with the principal, but instead he handed the gift bags to the staff and ran to the car under the pretext of urgent and important matters. It was just an excuse, because Louis's day was planned and he could not forget something important. As he got into the car, the man realized that his hands were shaking. After a while, he started the car and drove home. For the rest of the day, the boy did not leave Louis's mind. He had never seen him before, he was probably a newcomer, but why did he think Louis was his father? In the man's mind, he kept coming back to the child, wondering how he felt now, felt betrayed and abandoned again. It could very well be, after all, if he really took Louis as his father. The man identified with all abandoned children. To help them in some way, he took on the guardianship of the orphanage. Louis often told the children that they, like anyone else, were unique and that they had talents and could succeed in life, just like himself. And now this incomprehensible and rather unpleasant situation had happened. The next day he returned to the orphanage. For some reason, the boy, who called him father, bothered his soul. Louis decided that he needed to meet with the principal and discuss the situation with her. The woman greeted Louis with a smile and immediately began to apologize for the incident of the previous day. She tried to explain to the man that such situations happened often at the orphanage, because the children always waited to be taken away and waited for their parents. Louis understood very well this behavior in children. The only thing he didn't understand was why the boy called him daddy. It seemed to him that in the boy's eyes he saw relief, as if he had really found his father. Louis couldn't convince himself that it was just the child's fantasy. Then the director, sighing, admitted that there really was something strange about the situation. The boy's name was Ben, and he had arrived at the orphanage 2 weeks ago. Even before we met him, in his drawings he had a picture of a man who looked exactly like Louis, and he said that he was his father. With these words, the woman took some drawings from a folder on the table. When Louis saw them, his soul was shaken. Of course, they were very far from being a realistic portrait. But the characteristic scar on his right cheek was unmistakable. This deep scar Louis had earned in a fight at school. At this moment Ben's teacher came into the room and said that she had asked the boy a few questions about his drawings. Ben promptly told her that his mother had told him about his father when he was shown on the big screen TV. Then the teacher added softly that the day before Ben had even packed all his things and was waiting for his father to pick him up. The principal coughed softly, but expressively, as if she was trying to make the young teacher not say anything unnecessary. She was clearly afraid of scaring off the sponsor who had invested a lot of money in the development of the orphanage. After all, anyone could call him father, and that didn't mean he really was. Louis was in shock. The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place in ways he could never have imagined. The boy, Ben, was really his son. The scar, the drawings, the physical similarities, everything pointed to this undeniable reality. Without hesitation, Louis decided that no matter what happened, he would take Ben home and adopt him as his son. He called his lawyers immediately and asked them to prepare all the necessary documents for the adoption. Happiness and excitement took over Louis's heart as he waited for the legality to be resolved. When the news spread at the orphanage, a wave of joy infected all the staff and children. Dorothy, the young teacher who had helped Louis on this journey, was especially overjoyed. She had seen the love and dedication Louis had for Ben from their first meeting and was thrilled to see that they would now officially be a family. A few months passed and Ben's adoption was finalized. Louis was overflowing with happiness. Not only had he found his son, but he had also found true love alongside Dorothy. The three of them now formed a close-knit, loving family. Louis continued to run his successful business, but now his greatest accomplishment was not in material achievements. It was the joy of returning home and being welcomed by Ben, who now had a little sister, and by Dorothy, his wife and life partner. They built a life full of mutual love, support and understanding. Time passed and Ben grew up with all the love and care of a devoted father. He flourished, showing remarkable talents and intelligence, just like his father. They both supported each other and pursued their dreams together. One day, when Ben was about to graduate from college, Louis looked back at his family with gratitude. He knew that the path he had traveled, from his childhood in the orphanage to becoming a successful man and finally finding his son, was a precious and unique gift. The outcome of this story is the transforming power of love and dedication. Louis overcame the challenges of his childhood and through his journey found his family and true happiness. His story has inspired many others, proving that it doesn't matter where you come from, but the love you give and receive. And so Louis's life became an example of hope, overcoming, and unconditional love. His story has spread, inspiring others to believe in their own journeys and to find the courage to seek happiness and true love.